to the boardroom. This is the Business of Esports. The worlds of gaming and esports are evolving every day faster than ever before. With YouGov's living data, you can probe into the real thoughts and behaviors of esports fans and gamers worldwide. If you're a team, a brand, an agency, or a rights holder, you should be talking with YouGov. They're partners with the biggest names in esports and the biggest brands all around the world, driving compelling results every single day. Check out yougov.com/BOE and schedule a call with YouGov today. From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports weekly news show / post-podcast live stream. I am Paul the Prophet Dawalibi. I'm joined today by my friends and co-hosts, Lindsay the Boss Poss, Ben Pero from YouGov. Very special episode, as you can tell. Jeff the Juice Cohen and the Honorable Judge Jimmy Baratta. For those of you who are new here, welcome. What we do is we cover the most pressing gaming and esports topics and news of the week, but we look at all of it through a business and C-suite lens. We dissect, we analyze the business implications of everything happening in this industry. And best of all, we get to do it live with you guys. You get to ask us questions, get in our faces. And you know when Ben's on the show, that means you're getting a YouGov Insight segment. So you're here on a very, very special Wednesday. How is everyone doing this week, Lindsay?
It's been a good week. A couple weeks ago, I was going to share with you guys that I went to like a little VR center opened up kind of near my house, and it was really fun and got to play with a bunch of friends. All the headsets and games and stuff was really cool. So
I'm curious, what games did they have at this center? Like, what was the big draw?
There wasn't anything I'd ever heard of. Like, it was basically, and you pay for an hour. So honestly, just going through the sort of Steam library games that are set up for Oculus was more than enough for me. Like, there was a knockoff version of even Beat Saber. So
there was a knockoff version?
Yeah, it was called something else.
Why would it have to be knockoff? I thought it was a GR.
Yeah, why couldn't they load up regular Beat Saber?
I didn't ask any questions, but I did have a lot of fun with it. I mean, it's nice. It's nice when you're like in a space for it. At least there's plenty of room to like run around and stuff. It was cool.
And you're not worried about like destroying your own living room.
Exactly.
I know that.
Yeah.
Breaking your TV.
Yeah. But yes, we're back. Actually, guys, we missed last week. Lindsay, you sort of alluded to it. So apologies to all of our listeners and viewers. Jimmy and I we're actually in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia at a huge gaming conference there, and we just couldn't make it work. But Ben, how you doing? Good to have you back. Everyone recognizes Ben from YouGov.
Yeah, great to be here, guys. Don't worry, I do have my data cap. So when we get data, I'll put that on. I'm gonna update my name here too. I'm just gonna go by the data now.
I love it.
I was thinking I could just go data, but I don't know. Star Trek fans out there, maybe.
No, you're not going to get any pushback from me on that one.
I'm doing great though. Good to see y'all.
I'm good. I feel like we missed a week last week, which we never do. So I'm glad we're back.
The show goes on. Like I said, apologies for missing the week, but we're back. And Matt says, "So glad we're back. I need my weekly news fix." Matt, you're going to get it. Adam, great to see you. He says, must have missed that invite from Lindsay. She did send it, I'm sure. Did you check your spam folder? All right.
Adam guys, ignoring my texts again.
Yeah, exactly. Get ghosted. Guys, we have so much to cover, so let's jump into it. By the way, if anyone wants to ask about Riyadh and the whole conference there, Jimmy and I are happy to talk about it. We'll leave it till the end of the show. But also happy to have that conversation and talk about sort of what we saw there and what took place there, because it was very interesting, very eye-opening. But we do have industry news to cover, guys, today. So I want to get to that. And we do have, like I said, with Ben here, we're going to go in deep on a YouGov Insight segment, and we've got really great metaverse stuff. So that should be fun to dive into. But let's start with some news from the industry, and this one again caught my attention. A little bit clickbaity title here, but the headline here is let me share my screen here so everyone can see it. The headline here is TikTok's gaming efforts may be in trouble. And what they're talking about here, the article is about ByteDance basically having to lay off or downsize. It says they're aggressively downsizing. I don't know if that means they're laying people off, but it says aggressively downsizing their gaming teams. So supposedly there's been job cuts, and it's a result, according to the article, of Chinese developers still having difficulty getting games approved by the Chinese government. It says, as of July 2022, China has only approved 172 games for release, which is 600 less than in the same period in 2021. So ByteDance, a little bit of an uphill battle. Now, I thought this was interesting because if you guys remember, one of the last stories we did on TikTok was where they supposedly did like $1 billion of gaming revenue. And I'm curious where you see that, like, how can we reconcile that, right? Like the company comes out and says we did $1 billion of gaming revenue. And then now there's an article that says they're downsizing their gaming efforts because they can't get games approved. Do you guys buy
I think
this?
The way to reconcile it is potentially that they're struggling in their home country because they're having trouble getting games approved, which we've seen across a lot of the Chinese companies. So maybe they're making cuts there, but they're simultaneously aggressively kind of pushing into the Western market, which is something we've also seen from like Tencent with some of their acquisitions. And I know TikTok has been leaning pretty heavily into gaming, like on mobile in the West. Although we saw Snapchat do that, and then they recently, like about 2 weeks ago, just shut down their gaming business. So these social platforms seem to want to come in and out of gaming. It's weird that like even Facebook, who sort of pioneered social gaming, has at various times made it a big priority and then other times completely defocused on it. So it is odd that there's not more conviction from a lot of these platforms because, you know, we know gaming is really kind of the future of social interaction, at least I believe. So it's odd that these social media platforms don't like want to go all in. But I think that might be like the needle that they're threading, where it's like the home country, like China's getting harder, but they still have ambitions to be bigger in the West. So that maybe they're downsizing certain areas, but investing in others.
But can you really decouple those two things, Jeff? Like if they can't develop or build games at low cost in China, right? Because that's essentially what they're doing, right? The software development's cheaper there, people are cheaper there, and so yes, maybe they can't get games approved for there, but why downsize the teams there if you can build games for the Western market anyways?
So I guess for the Western market, I was talking about more them as like a platform, right? So like you know, where people are building games for distribution on TikTok, which is what we've seen with Snap, what we've seen in the past with Facebook, like Facebook Instant Games. So I think that more than them making games, it's like using TikTok and their massive reach as a social platform for distribution. So it might be two separate things, but your point is valid.
Sorry, this may be a Jeff only follow-up. How does the rest of the mobile gaming market look at ByteDance?
ByteDance, I mean, I think they definitely more so I'm more familiar with TikTok than ByteDance because ByteDance I think is more China focused, but TikTok's
a parent company, right, of TikTok.
Yeah, but more so, I guess ByteDance is the more China focused piece. I mean, from our perspective, like at home, TikTok's one of our biggest distribution channels in terms of ad networks that we like spend on. You know, I don't know specifically what number it is, but it's up there with like Facebook and Google and Instagram and all the other platforms. And then, like I was saying before, TikTok is in the early stages of rolling out a game distribution platform where like on TikTok you'll be able to play instant games, and so there's a lot of companies that are looking at potentially launching mobile games on that platform. The question is really just how they're going to monetize because they're really, really, really short duration games. Like the average player is literally playing like a minute and then they're gone. So it's like how do you monetize that? It's got to be like very quick advertisements up front sort of thing.
Yeah, it seems like the downsizing may be a little short-term thinking if it's only a short-term problem. I don't know if anyone has any other thoughts, Lindsay or Ben.
Yeah, I mean, these kind of back and forth games don't seem to be very successful on very many platforms for any length of time, whether it's Snapchat or iMessage or whatever it is. To me, I guess I'm a little disappointed that TikTok hasn't focused more on streaming and building out those capabilities when it comes to gaming. I don't necessarily see these. I mean, like, I suppose the success of Wordle should also show that like the back and forth games aren't even it. Like, do the single player where people can just hop on and do something real quick. Nobody wants to.
I know, but you're a social network. It's like what
right.
they
so
know, right?
Back and forth. But yeah, so I wish TikTok would kind of let that part go and focus more on the live stream capabilities, because I think that there's a lot of potential there. I'm not really sure why the gaming division, and that kind of works around the Chinese regulation problem with getting games approved and all of that as well. So maybe this will free up resources to be able to do that.
Yeah, I'd say to Lindsay's point, I'm curious if there's like what titles they're pulling from, if it's like they're kind of more mid-core hardcore titles or those short form more mobile leaning ones. Yeah,
I mean, it doesn't specify, right? And it's also like when they say aggressively downsizing, I don't know what that means, right? Like it's just
could
very
be like
vague.
10 to 2
Yeah.
5,000 person company.
Yeah. Right, like I don't know, unfortunately we don't have more detail. It's just, again, at the scale and success of TikTok, you would think that whatever downsizing, like none of the downsizing is necessary. Like if it's only short-term pain, it's only a short-term problem of getting games approved, you would think eventually that resolves itself. And if the battle for game development talent is so tough and as tough as we think it is, letting people go in that way, I don't know. Seems short-sighted.
Yeah. I mean, I think it really must come down to government crackdown and regulations. Just another article I found here. I think it was hundreds of people that were laid off in this.
Oh, really? Was that the number, Ben?
Yeah,
I mean, that's a significant amount, right? That's a lot of people. That's not 10 to 2. Matt says, I remember reading about this. I mean, well, it happened this week, Matt. So, and Kyle says, good point, Lindsay. Ninja showed the efficacy of TikTok as a live streaming platform last week. Just go all in. I mean, we'd be streaming on TikTok too if they'd open up the streaming platform to everybody. I mean, this is part of the problem. To Lindsay's point, why not push on that front? You would think, especially with the Ninja thing, they would go all in on that. Matt says, I heard that they're laying off several hundreds of people. Okay, like Ben said, there you go. Chris says, with the restrictions that China has on gaming, I'm not surprised that TikTok is struggling. P.S. It should be Paul the panel now and not Paul the prophet. I mean, you would think all of them would be struggling, yes, which they are. You know, Tencent showed some struggles on the gaming side, and so did TikTok. So, yeah, we did call this. We did say there would be a slowdown in China as a consequence. So it is interesting to see that this is coming to, you know, that their regulation is actually stifling the industry. So it'll be interesting to see where TikTok goes from this. But have any of you actually ever played a game on TikTok? Like, to me, that's telling.
I didn't even know how you do that.
I'm with you, man. Like, I actually, and I'm not a mobile gamer, so I guess I'm not but like, Lindsay, and don't take this the wrong way, I would have expected you to at least have tried it.
You think me, the person who cares the most about data privacy out of anyone here, is going to download an app? You know what I did in order to like have a TikTok is took an old phone, factory wiped it clean, set up a VPN to change my location, set up a fake email, and then downloaded TikTok. And I still haven't picked up that phone since doing that.
What are you worried? China's going to know about your Sunday night pizza recipes? What are you concerned
Just, honey, we've been through this debate like 30 times, okay? I know you don't care about data privacy. I do. I can do whatever I want with my life when it comes to
that. But the fact that I also don't buy this is for the Western market, because I literally don't know anyone who's played a game on TikTok. But maybe it's because we don't have enough like 12 and 13-year-olds in here. But Chris says Mob Boss Poss has bodies in that backyard. That is likely, Chris, very likely. All right, guys, let's move on. Let's talk about Valve. Valve in the news. This is a happier story, I think. Very happy story if you're me. And the headline here, although equally vague, Valve has, quote, a lot of games in development. Devs ramping up projects. So suppose the subheadline here says Valve is still very much making video games and currently has a lot of games in development, and a good portion of its employees are working on them. I really loved how vague this headline and subheadline was. So they confirmed a couple of things this week. One, that a new Steam Deck is in development. I think that's interesting. So they have not given up on their hardware platform, which is something they have done in the past. So they're doubling down on Steam Deck. There will be a new Steam Deck. And according to them, there will be new games. So this was an interview that was done with Greg Coomer from Valve. And what he said was, we're not stopping making games at all. Valve has a lot of games in development. We will continue to release games. He says, and I'm quoting him, game development is very important to Valve. I don't know the exact numbers, but the percentage of employees involved in game development is high. A lot of people are involved. I also found it funny that the Valve employee doesn't know how many people at Valve are working on games. He says when he was asked, will the next game be Half-Life 3? Or like, have you guys given up on the franchise? He says the short answer, are you going to still make games in the franchise? He says the short answer is yes. There's more to say about the Half-Life world. Alex is a sign that Valve has more to say about the world and that he'd like to make another Portal someday. So references to specific Valve franchises and new Steam Deck hardware. What do you guys think of Valve's position here, even as vague as this is? Like, why come out and say this now? I guess is what are they trying to accomplish here? Jimmy, thoughts on this?
I'm trying to think specifically in regards to the Steam Deck, because as you know, Paul, I finally got off the wait list for mine. I thought about it for all of 20 minutes, and I said, you know what, I'm going to pass on that. I pulled a couple friends. I took a look, and I just said, I don't even use my Nintendo Switch all that much. It collects dust in the bottom of my drawer. What do I need another handheld $400, subpar unit? And actually, I want to tie in because we were watching the XQC stream last night too. And right, like all the Nintendo commercials that he watched after the Sony announcement just looked so like the games were so much worse. They just didn't hold up, maybe because it was Nintendo's tech and hardware. I know I'm going off on a tangent here. Basically, mobile gaming is not the vibe. It's not the wave. Why is Valve announcing another one? Maybe because their existing one, I mean, clearly there was a lot of hype around it. A lot of people wanted it, but I think there's a lot of improvement to be had. So maybe they're finally improving it. And that's why. The story, honestly, is beyond me, guys. All I can say is I wasn't a fan of the Steam Deck myself, so I passed on. I'm not putting my money there, you know?
Okay, so no one wants to take the easy layup here, which is all these companies listen to the prophet. All these companies have been shamed by the prophet. And now they're finally crawling out of their caves and realizing that they need to make games again. Like, is this not the most obvious tinfoil hat theory here? Ben,
checks out.
Checks out, right?
My data hat. That checks out.
Guys, yeah, good. No, but seriously, guys, what like?
Well,
does no one
if they
find
want
it
to sell?
strange that
If they want to sell hardware, it makes sense to try to tie it to exclusive content. I mean, I think we always discuss this whenever this comes up. So to the extent that they're trying to sell hardware, it does make sense to build games. And then why are they announcing the games? I always wonder that, because if you're a public company, it makes sense to announce things. When you're a private company, it's not as important, especially with this really vague like PR. Like I hated the way he described it. It's like rather than saying like, oh, we're building a new Half-Life game, it's like we do have a lot more to say about the world of Half-Life. Like what the hell does that mean? Like, why not say, yeah, we're building a game? It's like the developers still yearn to live amongst the world of Half-Life. It's like, okay, cool. But yeah, so I lost my train of thought. I think it's probably as a recruiting tool, right? If you need to hire great developers, they need to know what they're working on. So it's like, oh, guys, we're building games. Come work at Valve. Like, it's cool. Yeah, but we got things going on.
Jeff, let me just push back on that, because I think that's a really smart insight. Maybe this is for recruiting, right? Remind people that Valve still makes great games and still needs developers to make great games. But then wouldn't it be way more effective? And Chris sort of has a comment here, which I'll bring up in a second. If you said, hey, we're building the next Counter-Strike. We're building the sequel to come be a part of building the next Counter-Strike. Don't you think I'd get way more resumes? Like way more resumes if I came and said
yes,
that.
But then you have to actually be building the next Counter-Strike, which I don't know if they are or not.
You'd also get more hype.
What are they actually doing?
Dota 3.
I don't know.
I don't understand, because in the gaming industry, you can just be like, oh yeah, we're making the next Counter-Strike for 2033, and everyone will go crazy and come work for you. You can lie. Like,
it's true.
Everyone is already mad at Steam. Why not just throw onto the fire?
I mean, Jimmy and I were watching the PlayStation announcements yesterday, and half the games are coming out in like 2024, but right when they're being announced now. So, I mean,
they also all look the same, but that's besides the point.
Besides the point.
I wonder if Valve is like thinking more in VR, and if there's any, like, if they lean into the Steam Deck, is there like a portable VR thing that they're gonna double down on? You know that, but again, tell us some of that, because that's a lot more interesting. We'll pay attention.
I mean, that could be potentially groundbreaking, right? Because they have deep VR knowledge, right? If they could tie those two together, that could be compelling. But you're right. Why be so vague then if you're doing something that cool?
Cool, right?
Like, then just say it. I don't understand the beating around the bush here. Let me just get caught up here. Matt says a lot of games in development equals people at Valve sitting around a table trying to come up with an idea for a new game. They don't have to make a new game. Like, meaning they could literally make Dota 3, Half-Life 3, and the next CSGO. And I mean, they would make $1 zillion over the next 10 years. Christian says, cue up the new Counter-Strike rumors again. I mean, they have to be working on a new one, I would think. They must. Tranquility says, my husband bought one, open boxed, and immediately listed it on Facebook Marketplace. LOL. I'm curious, Tranquility, why? What was the reason? Because my impression, again, anecdotally, I don't have the sales numbers, I don't think anyone does, is that the Steam Deck has sold way beyond Valve's expectations. Yeah. And so I'm curious what your husband didn't like that made him sell it.
I'm curious what he sold it for also.
Matt says, the problem with making a statement like that is you actually have to make a game that is better than CSGO, because if it's just as good, people will keep playing CSGO due to familiarity. True. But you would expect that they could make a game better than a 10, 15-year-old game. He didn't see himself using it. Interesting.
Seems
just no
like
need for
Jimmy's logic there too. It's the same logic as Jimmy, just like.
What's funny, I was waiting for Elden Ring to play on the Steam Deck, and then when it finally came time, I said, it's kind of a lot for just one game, and I don't really see myself, to Tranquility's point, I don't see myself using it after that. So I pass on the opportunity. I would love anyone that loves their Steam Deck to chime in, but I haven't found, out of the people I know that own one, I haven't found anyone that's diehard about it. They just say, it's a fun toy, right? But that's kind of it.
Matt says, a new Half-Life would probably break the internet. You get old gamers that love Half-Life and new gamers that are obsessed with every game that comes out of Steam. I think literally any new game out of Valve would probably break the internet. Matt, but it's a good point. Chris says Valve also had a massive week with President Macron announcing the Blast Major and the ESL Major, allowing more people to attend. Spotlight is on them again with this announcement. I mean, this is my issue. Everyone thinks Valve like disappeared. I really don't think they disappeared. They've always been doing something. I just think they've always underachieved relative to how much passion there is for their IP. They're kind of lazy is the impression I get, right? It's like bare minimum because they know they're going to get B pluses across the board no matter what they do. Tranquility says the people who would buy Steam Deck probably already have a powerful PC. Is there anything wrong with that, though?
I have a powerful PC. I don't know.
I think the point is just that like people might prefer PC. Like Paul, you are a PC purist.
Yeah, I know, but I don't think this is a substitute, right? It's an and, not an or.
Yeah, it might just be like they're mentioning before about needing it for or not seeing yourself the scenario you use it in. I mean, there might just not be an and scenario for a lot of PC gamers.
Yeah. All right, guys, let's do one more story, and then we are going to get to what everyone's here for and waiting for, which is our YouGov Insights segment. But let's talk about, let's stick on game development. And this one was just more of a funny, sort of silly story. But it was Square Enix in the news. And it says, Square Enix shutting down PS5's worst game before it's even a year old. So this is a game called Babylon's Fall. It says it's an even bigger disaster than Anthem. So Square Enix, supposedly, it was a $60 game. It was launched 6 months ago, so people paid $60 for it 6 months ago, and less than 6 months now it's going to be, and in less than 6 months it will completely stop working. It's a dungeon crawler sporting a European oil painting art style. Somehow I could have told them this was probably not going to work, but it was one of the worst rated games basically ever, and so they're shutting the game down. And the question I had for you guys is, if you paid $60 for this game, should there be some rules around how long you need to keep the game service alive? Even though the company took, obviously, a huge loss, huge bath on this game. Should there be regulation? Like, if you paid $60 and you only get 6 months of play out of it, is this an issue? Should we be thinking about regulating this?
I think so. Yes, it's a big issue. Do I think it should be regulated as you use that word? No. Like, I don't really think like the government needs to come in and say like video games have to be live on the servers for 1 year in order to be shut down. Like, to me, that doesn't seem reasonable. Having said that, this is a great example of where I think consumers can vote with their wallet, right? Because if you have the next game coming from Square Enix, like, you can believe that people are not going to pre-order it. They're not going to buy it unless they really know it's good. So like, I think the free market, to some extent, not to make this a political thing or something with the government, but the free market can regulate, I think, effectively this because it's not fair to people. Let's say you bought it 3 months ago. I suspect not many people did, based on the fact that they're shutting it down means it probably wasn't very successful. But yeah, I don't think it's very fair for people at all.
I mean, I think at minimum they should offer those who did buy it, all dozen of them or whoever it is, some kind of credit towards their next Square Enix game, something just to like build good brand credibility and loyalty.
I mean, they're already taking a financial bath on it, right? Adding like more refunds, like partial refund, I guess, something like that.
I think
painful.
Partial would be fair, but yeah, it's
the risk. It's the risk, guys.
It's kind of an investment in keeping your fans happy too.
Right.
But is this the case for the $60 box copy to go away? Is this maybe the strongest case for that?
Because definitely the strongest yet. I don't know that it's going to make that go away, but I think price determination is definitely up for review by the gaming community. The thing that I get nervous about is games charging like some weird monthly subscription. But I do think that given the ease of downloading games, you should be able to like buy a 3-month pass for something or do something shorter. I mean, there's so much flexibility in how games are delivered now, and there's just been no change or creativity in price models to reflect that.
Prices are going up though, right? Like, I don't know if we're covering that. I don't want to jump ahead, Paul, but Ubisoft is raising the prices to $70. So the opposite's happening. I like your point, Lindsay, that it's more about their brand, right? This is brand destroying for this to happen to anyone, honestly. So the way you navigate it or the way you mitigate it is, are we going to stay in business? Yes. If so, okay, let's try and make our fans happy. Like Cyberpunk, right? Cyberpunk offered full refunds, and I'm told that and what I read about their latest releases, that it's actually quite good. So CD Projekt Red did a pretty good thing there.
I'm not sure I buy your arguments, guys, because if the end goal is keep the customer happy, right? You have to assume there are some people who bought this game who enjoy this game.
Yep.
Right? There's some small group that bought it and enjoy it and are upset because it's shutting down. Like, shouldn't the answer not be we'll refund or we'll regulate this or something? Like, shouldn't the answer be if this happens, they have to like open source the server code or something so that anyone can run their own, whatever this game's called, Babylon's Fall server? Right, so that at least the fans of the game can continue playing it regardless of the developer's support of it.
Developer owns that IP, though, right? That's really their prerogative.
Yeah, but if they abandon it,
they still own the IP just because they're not using it or trying to make money with it. You're making a common sense argument and a fair argument, which totally makes sense. But, you know, the law trumps that.
I guess a counter to your point before, Paul, about, you know, is this another final nail in the coffin for the $60 box game? I mean, how much is this game reliant on a server and constant updates? I don't know the game at all. But if it was just like a A to Z story, those who love it can play it and then be gone with it. But if it's something that is actively being updated, then that case is moot.
I think what I read is to be able to play it, you still needed like connection to their servers. Like the single player will still get shut down, even though there is a single player component. You will not be able to play the single player either. Which, you know, this is a complaint we've heard over and over again. Single player campaigns that rely on online connections that sort of don't make sense or aren't necessary.
So
Jimmy, you're shaking your head.
Well, yeah, I downloaded for the flight here. I downloaded Elder Scrolls Blades just because I thought it'd be fun to check out on mobile. Requires connection to the server. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is a closed world single player game. Come on.
Let me just catch up on these comments, and then we're going to get to YouGov Insights. Chris says, "Christ, what would today's generation do if they bought ET on Atari?" I mean, Chris, if they held, if you held on to that though, that would have been worth some, or still worth something, right? So. This $60 box copy won't be worth anything. Adam says, feels like a dangerous precedent to set if you regulate that. But if it's that terrible of a game, the company could offer a refund of half price or something to keep the fans happy, but tough either way. Yeah, I think you and Ben, Adam, agree on that, which is keep the fans happy, give them something back. All right, guys, that brings us, the reason Ben's here, other than being an amazing co-host, when we do this is, you guys know YouGov very generously supports the Business of Esports weekly news show. They produce the absolute best data on games, gamers, esports fans all around the world. And the benefit of having Ben here is we can showcase that. And I know, Ben, I'm going to bring it on the screen here. You guys have done recently a report, which everyone can and should go download. I believe it is linked from yougov.com/BOE. If it's not, we'll make sure to have it up there. But it is called Unlocking the Metaverse, and it's your latest report. It's an analysis into the UK and US attitudes about the metaverse. So I will let you drive here, Ben. I don't know where you want to start.
Yeah, I guess, I'll just tee this up a little. So This is a big white paper. We're not going to go through the whole paper. Just a few charts and things that I think were interesting we can talk about here. The methodology, YouGov, we have a big global panel of about 20 million people around the world. We have kind of always on insights, things that we're collecting about these folks all the time, like their esports fandoms and video game habits and their media behaviors, consumption behaviors, so on and so forth. But we can also go back and run custom surveys to panelists. So that's what we did here. So this was a survey among, I think it's about 2,500 people in each country. And the goal here was to really understand, at its current stage in development, obviously the five of us and a lot of your listeners, we talk about the metaverse all the time. We've been talking about it, some of us, for 5, 10, our entire lives, or basically whenever we started watching Star Trek. But others, it's a new concept. But it's very buzzy right now. So we really wanted to start by first saying how many people really are aware of the metaverse and understand what it is. And then we dig deep a little further into those who have already tried it. We call them trialists, early adopters. And then those who are metaverse curious. So they have a good understanding of what it is. They're curious about it in the future, but they haven't really dove in yet. So there are also two other segments, the rejectors and then like just people who are totally naive. But the trialists and curious are kind of two groups that we'll talk a little bit about today. And we'll focus mostly on the U.S., but wanted to start on this slide, which has UK and U.S. data. No surprises here. Well, maybe one surprise is that half of all consumers have heard of the metaverse as a concept. And on the next slide, we'll see what do they really think that is? But no surprise, I think, is that younger generations are more likely to indicate awareness of the metaverse. So I don't think there's any big aha moments here, but putting some numbers to those.
Ben, I thought one thing interesting on this slide was there's not like a precipitous drop off in awareness until you get to like 55 plus. Did anyone else think that was interesting? Right? Like you would think awareness is only like 12 and 13-year-olds. The reality here, well, not 12, like 18 to 20, but the awareness stays pretty consistent until you hit 55 plus, which I thought was interesting. Just how buzzy it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a concept in like science fiction, it's been around, but yeah, definitely a drop off among older folks. So then it gets us to confidence in being able to explain the metaverse, and this is where I think it starts to get more interesting. So for among those who said they are aware of it, so that 55% or whatever it was in the last chart, 45% of them say that they're fairly confident or very confident that they can explain what the metaverse is in the US. You'll see the rest of this, I think we're going to go through, is going to be US only. But in general, Americans are ahead of the curve compared to Britons on understanding what the metaverse is and their interest in doing different things within the metaverses as they may come to be.
Interesting.
USA. No?
Yeah, this speaks to U.S. confidence in general.
That's true too. So what is it? I think I lied. Here's one more slide. U.S. versus U.K. So in the U.S., we asked this question: which of the following do you expect metaverse to resemble most closely? And I thought it stood out that Americans are more likely to say it's a kind of a new version of a social media platform. And we'll get into this among trialists and curious consumers in a bit. But really, like, interactivity with people is a big draw into the metaverse, more than just like social cooperative type games.
This slide is. Oh, sorry, Paul.
Yeah, go ahead.
To me, when I looked at this before the show, I thought this slide was particularly interesting because most people's current experience with the metaverse, I would argue, are through virtual meetings like Zoom, which is one of the lowest ones here, and social media, right? And VR is probably something that the fewest people actually have experience for. So it's interesting to see the expectation versus what actually the metaverse encompasses, all these different dynamics. I think it's also partially maybe that people don't realize that when you're in a Zoom, when you're in a meeting like that, that's an element of a social, or rather digital business, right? that's going to be part of the metaverse one day, a huge part.
Yeah.
But the actionable item here also, I think, interesting is maybe fewer companies should be building browser-based metaverses when the people's expectations is a way more immersive experience, right? Like people want more game and VR experience than they want a meeting room.
This definitely makes me more bullish on Meta and what they're doing. I mean, they seem to be all in on virtual reality, and and to some extent, maybe this is the tail wagging the dog, right? Where it's like people's expectations are sort of what the loudest voice is, and I feel like Meta has done a great job literally rebranding themselves and kind of being thought leaders in what the metaverse is going to be, and their vision is VR. So people may just expect that to be what comes about.
Yeah.
And those leaked Oculus photos. Sorry, Ben, go for it.
And I was going to say, I cut, only so much we could cover in this little tease here, but there was a slide on like what brands people associate most with the metaverse, and Meta is already far surpassed the rest. So it's right there on the nose, I guess, in the name. So interest in the metaverse, just some kind of like demographic differences. Again, like really in the US in particular, being driven by, 18 to 44-year-olds. This was an 18+ study. So I think, we did this among teens. We'd see interest much higher as well. And then, I think it was an interesting call out that, women in the US are as interested in the metaverse as men in the UK. So, US interest is just higher, and that's a same across all demos.
I'm curious why you think the UK and US difference here.
It would just seem, so this is a percent.
Is it just proportionately higher, Ben? Is that it? Okay. But the male to female ratio is consistent.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay, so there's far too many words in this page, but the important thing is we're going to talk a bit about. Did it get cut off? No, sorry, they're both there. The trialists and the curious. So trialists are people who said they've already been in the metaverse. You can see here that early adopters or early trialists is a lot higher in the US, with 15% of Gen Pop adults saying that they have experienced something in the metaverse. And then that said, there's like 2/3 of Britons are curious. They haven't been in, but they are interested in trying something, versus 51% of Americans. So Americans just a little bit further down the funnel in terms of trying things out. But overall, the combination of those two are looking at a pretty similar size of the population that are interested in adopting or have already into the metaverse.
It's interesting because the US is sort of heavier at the extremes, right? Like they're more likely to have already tried it, but they're also more likely to completely reject it.
Yeah. And I think by age, you see a lot of that come out.
Interesting.
Cool. So now we'll focus just on the US and specifically on trialists and curious. So I think some of this is not surprising. Trialists, they skew more heavily male. They skew younger, and they do tend to have kind of a higher household income, which is consistent with the even more hardcore gamers as like a group. Now the curious people, they are a bit older, but it does cover a full range. I mean, I think of like, and if he's listening, I think of my dad. It's kind of like someone who maybe wouldn't know a point of entry into the metaverse right now, but is someone who is a sci-fi guy and would definitely be curious to see what it is, but doesn't really know how to get in. So sometimes I think those kind of create these like personas in your head as you build these things out. But I think the gender split here is not too surprising, with early adopters skewing more male. But what do you guys think?
No, I think the call out here, again, I always am impressed how actionable the YouGov data is in terms of like, if you're building something in the metaverse, you're building something Web3, whatever. First of all, the male to female ratio is interesting. The average age is interesting, but that clearly these people have high household income. Like this is a definitely greater than the average spending ability, and these are the early adopters, right? Trialists are the people who are willing to do stuff, try stuff before anyone else. I think that's interesting, right? That you're more like you're better off targeting more male, more mid-30s than what may be more intuitive, right? Like, again, I think intuitively we think it's the 18-year-old, not the 34-year-old.
Right.
I don't know if you guys have other thoughts or.
I mean, what's interesting to me is that it almost feels like the demographics of this are exactly what the demographics are of a gamer. Like, we always talk about the gamers, like a 34-year-old male with above average income. Like, that's pretty much exactly what we have here. Which is, interesting. Not surprising either at all that people who are into gaming and into this world kind of would be the early ones to try the metaverse, because frankly, I firmly believe the metaverse currently is basically gaming. So I would be actually curious, and maybe this is another slide, like what experiences the 15% that are trialists, what they're talking about that they've done. Is it Oculus? Is it, Sandbox VR or whatever? Is it?
Yeah,
I don't know. It's probably
Jeff, I love that take, and I'll take it one step further. Now that I'm looking at this this demographic information, the trialist, to me, this is WoW players, like almost to a T. Like, this is literally that the age range, the male to female, the house. Like, this is people who grew up playing WoW.
Yeah, I agree. Let's push forward. There's, I think this starts to get more interesting and starts to get some of the things you're talking about, Jeff. So, we just look at some kind of attitudinal differences of trialists, and we see like a really high over index on things that are branded, of playing social games already. Of course, like very much early tech adopters. That's not surprising. High index on cryptocurrency, understanding and interest of it. So I think it's very much in line with kind of that core gamer and crypto investor overlap when it comes to the early adopters for the metaverse.
I mean, the first stat bodes well for commerce in the metaverse.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 66% of the trialists say they identify as a sucker for anything branded, even if it's expensive. I love that.
I'm shocked at the self-awareness that people put, like 66 people percentage, basically admit that they're suckers. That's not awesome.
It bodes well for in metaverse commerce. Put it that way.
And just extensions of brand reach as a new touch point, for sure. And then I think the curious folks, as I kind of like took a step back and looked the whole report and try to digest it. I think for them, it's more like they want to see the technology and the applications develop a bit further before they're going to come in. So they are very much interested in brand innovation and also having like some of the best technologies and things in their pockets and in their lives. I think that I think the middle stat at the top about considering themselves a practical person, I think they're waiting to see like the practical reasons to get into the metaverse, and that's going to really draw them in, but they're like waiting for it. And it's a huge population of individuals. So I think this just talks to the tipping point that, Web3 and the metaverse is waiting for.
Anecdotally checks out, right? Like I don't think there's been a killer app yet to draw in the masses, like that clear sort of reason to be there. And it seems like there's just enough skepticism among this group that keeps them off for now.
Yeah.
The new technology products one is interesting just because with the price raise in Oculus now.
That's true.
Yeah.
That one and the one next to it. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Ben, you tell me, do you want me to jump to anything? Or?
Keep going here a little bit. Let me think of what's most interesting. Sorry, go back up a little. Go to the next one. Yeah, perfect. So compared to Britain's U.S. consumers tend to have, and I took all the British stuff off, so you can't see this comparison on the slide right now. Download the full report, and you can. I think that generally, though, Americans seem to have a better understanding at the moment of kind of the commercial potential of the metaverse. So there's things like, you can buy and sell things there. And understanding that cryptocurrency and decentralized currencies will be kind of part of those transactions. And also that you can earn money and perhaps even make a living in the metaverse. There were things that Americans were ahead of on agreeing to those statements. And then there is, a third of people who really feel that it's being built and controlled by Facebook. So for better or worse, that is the perception right now.
I mean, that's kind of brilliant, right? That a rebrand accomplishes that so quickly that you already have basically this much mind share.
Have you guys started seeing the ads, the new meta ads that are like just
no,
all around your avatar and the things you can do in the metaverse? I mean, I'll keep my opinions out of it, but it's interesting. It's happening.
It's fascinating.
I'm not seeing this.
I mean, Jeff, I don't know if you have thoughts on this because you mentioned it before.
Well, so the only counterpoint or devil's advocate I'll throw out there to you saying it was a genius rebrand, which I sort of agree, but I think there's definitely a negative connotation that people have about it. So like, I wonder if there was a follow-up question to those 33% of people, like, is that a good thing? Or like, how much overlap is there between the people who said that and the people who are like, I have no interest in the metaverse because I think it's being built and controlled by Facebook. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if there's an element of that.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And this it's worth mentioning, like, this is these are charts from the data, but the data exists within our YouGov Crunch portal. So clients can have access to it and make deeper cuts. So I don't know if we can get exactly at that idea, Jeff, but probably make some assumptions, and then we can always go back and recontact folks. It looks like
this I thought was interesting, Ben. Like, why people try the metaverse or why they give it their first try. Media driven primarily, but 18% it says because I have to use it for my work/job, which I find fascinating because, again, like, up until recently, most people would not have considered a Zoom call going into the metaverse, right? And I'm curious how much of that is in that 18%. And the 23% that say I buy something in the real world that has some incentive to go into the metaverse, way higher than I would have expected. I mean, I'm pleased that that's the case, because I think that's one of the stronger sort of use cases, this connection between real world and metaverse. And it's interesting that 23% have made that transition.
So I mean, bear in mind, we're talking about the 15% of Gen Pop who have tried the metaverse. But about a quarter of them saying that there was some incentive from the real world. So I don't know if that's NFTs or virtual experience, like we've seen by Samsung and Vans and many others in like Roblox. But yeah, that stood out to me too. And also the one about using it for work or job, like how many people are actually involved with making these things or marketing, type actions within the metaverse already, or what else are people doing there for their job?
Right. Also want to point out the esports angle. I mean, that's pretty high, 41%, or I guess it depends how you look at it, 26 and 41% is higher than meeting new people, which is a bit surprising. Like, because to me, I've seen a lot of these pitches about people watching esports in the metaverse, and I never really understand like why that's better than just watching esports like on Twitch. But maybe there is something to the community aspect and being like immersed in it that actually could be beneficial to esports. I don't know if that's something we want to unpack a bit more, but I think it's an interesting data point.
Yeah. The fact that meeting up with friends is also higher than meeting new people. Again, you would think in an alternate universe where you have potential total anonymity, that meeting new people would be way more palatable of a sort of an activity there. Meeting up with people you can see in the real world still has value to them in an alternate world, I think is interesting. Look, I mean, Ben, I don't want to jump the gun here, but guys, this research is amazing. There's like this one you see is a shortened version, 21 slides. The full report has 49 slides, and there's just so much in there. I mean, we could probably spend 10 hours unpacking the whole thing.
Absolutely.
So we're not going to go through the whole thing today, but I mean, Ben, thank you for highlighting some of these things. I will put the link again in the chat, guys, to yougov.com/BOE to go check it out. I'll also offer, you're welcome to reach out to me or to Jimmy especially, or to anyone on the panel, including Ben. If you want access to the report, we're happy to send it to you. There should be a link at yougov.com/BOE, but if there isn't, we can send the link to the YouGov website where you can download it, or we'll send it to you directly. But definitely reach out to myself or to Jimmy or to Ben. I know, Ben, you guys also had something else going on Metaverse related, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, Paul, just last thing. We're doing a webinar next Thursday. I believe it's 1 p.m. Eastern time. So if you really do want to dive in and go through all of it, we'll have Nicole Pike, our global sector head for gaming and esports, the queen of gaming data. I realized this whole time I've not been wearing my data cap. That's a loss. So definitely sign up for that. It's a free webinar, and you can also get the report for free. There are links to the BOE site, or you can go to yougov.com/business, business.yougov.com, business.yougov.com.
So I put yougov.com/BOE in the chat. I also linked on Facebook. If you're watching us on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitch, the link for the webinar, guys. So you guys can go sign up for that webinar to get the full. You guys are going to go through the full report, right, Ben, with Nicole? And so
full report. I think there's some case studies she's going to talk through, and I think really bring it to life. So definitely worth checking out for everyone.
And as if that's not enough, guys.
Sorry, go ahead.
For those of you that are listening, not live, that this is a recorded show. Obviously, we like to do it live with you. For those of you that are listening after the fact, maybe you're not in front of a computer, you should be subscribed to our newsletter. All of this information is also all over our newsletter. No excuse not to check this out. Go watch Ben, go watch Nicole, learn more about the metaverse. So check your newsletter. It's there.
Thanks, guys.
All right, guys, I have two quick stories, and then we're going to wrap this up. And one of the two quick stories here was the Saudi Arabia trip. So we may not even get to that, but let's talk about.
Do you have like a picture slideshow or something? Like, can you put up a little PowerPoint, little summaries?
I probably should, but
Paul's summer vacation.
What I will say, what was cool is I did a bunch of interviews at the show, including with one of the princes of the Saudi royal family, and who's in charge of the Saudi Esports Federation. So I did a bunch of interviews. And this week, instead of your normal podcast episode, you guys are going to get interviews from the Next World Forum in Riyadh. So we're going to start uploading a bunch of the interviews that I did. So you're going to get a lot of new episodes over the next couple of weeks, because I probably did half a dozen or more interviews while I was there with people from the industry. So that's what you guys have to look forward to from a podcast perspective. Let's talk about the NFL, guys, though. I just wanted to touch on this NFL story because I thought it was a big story, relatively big story this week. And the headline here was NFL players join forces with top gaming creators for debut of Tuesday night gaming. And what this is it's Enthusiast Gaming that's driving it. So the people at Enthusiast Gaming. So they've teamed up with the NFL, and basically NFL players of the past and present are going to be playing games with like big names in gaming. It's going to be streamed live on YouTube on Tuesdays, basically in the evenings in Eastern time. 12 NFL players or legends are going to team up with 6 gaming creators. It's going to be a competitive series. They're going to face off in 3 games each week, including Madden, Rocket League, Fortnite, etc. They name some of the players who are participating: Leonard Fournette, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, I don't know any of these people, but there's a bunch of NFL players who are going to be playing games every week, Tuesday night gaming. Now, I thought this was cool because I know things like Monday Night Football resonate, right? Like these are TV sort of I don't even know what you would call them, but the long time sort of successful TV series, and they're trying to bring this to a gaming audience. Maybe I'm jumping the gun here. Who's this for, guys? Is it for the NFL fan or is it for the gaming audience? And to whose benefit? Like, this is always my question with these things, right? Like who wins bigger here?
I mean, I think here enthusiast gaming kind of wins. I mean, they get a little bit of PR. It's pretty cool to partner with the NFL. Like it sounds good from an investor perspective. Like I'm not super bullish that this will get a ton of viewership. Like I just don't know. Like you said, the players, like, as a big NFL fan, I recognize the names, but like none of them blow your doors off. Like they didn't get the greatest players out there. And to your point, I'm just not sure who this like appeals to, because it's not the football fan. Like you're not getting like, your average 40-year-old football fan that doesn't care about gaming. You'd be like, oh, I'm now going to watch Twitch because like I just need to see Leonard Fournette and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson like play video games. Like it's not going to happen. And I'm not convinced you're going to get your gaming fan who doesn't care about football to watch this. So maybe I think this is like where I think you could get is the intersection of the two, where you get like a 12, the 8 to 12-year-old football fan / gamer who thinks this is cool, which is fine. Like that's good engagement. I think it could be a pretty cool programming, but like this is not going to change the world or really anything consequential. Like we'll never hear about it again, I don't think.
I think you nailed it, Jeff. I think that's the exact age group that you're looking at. It's my nephew, he's playing flag football. He loves sports, but he also slaps at COD, and wants to play video games all day long. And this is really that perfect fit for him. But I also think, though, I actually disagree with one part of what you said, which was that enthusiast wins here. I think the NFL wins because they're attracting that younger audience. They're aging up. Their viewership, obviously they're massive, but their viewership is shrinking slowly. And I think this helps attract that younger audience and says, hey, you like gaming, you like football. Well, we're football and we're doing gaming too. You can do both with us. I agree with you, though. At the end of the day, it doesn't really move the needle. It's like, a way too old guy in way too young fitted clothing walking around. And it's just like one of those hey boomer moments. And Lindsay, I can see you want to jump in, so save me here.
Oh, no, I just totally feel like this is also for the players themselves. Like they're like, yes. Yeah. I want to get on Twitch and play games with cool people. Like I totally feel, especially since they didn't get the biggest names, like this is a chance for guys in the league who just love gaming in their free time to get on and just play with people for fun. So that being said, I don't know how much this is going to pay off for whomever paid them to be on these streams, but hopefully that gaming and sports audience, it might be smaller, it might be niche. Hopefully they have, for whatever reason, a lot of interest in engaging or spending or doing whatever kind of goals they're trying to get out of that. And in the meantime, I hope the players have a blast with it.
I will just say, I think sorry, if I can have a final word. I'm a bit more optimistic. I think the audience goes up to like 22, I think, through like college age. Tuesday nights, frat boys hanging out, like something to watch. They're also playing these games and are hoping for the opportunity to get into a game with their players so that they can be streamed, playing an NFL Tuesday night game or whatever it is. So I think it really comes down to how they execute. That'll determine like how big it gets. Like if they do a really good job of interacting and creating these football player to video game player interactions and stuff, they could have some really fun opportunities and get pretty popular, I think.
I mean, Ben, I wanted to say something specific to YouGov on this. Like, but before I want to just read these comments. Chris says it was for 400 viewers when I tuned in last night. I mean, that's not a whole lot. It's not a whole lot. Matt says, even I, as a huge NFL fan, do not care about this. They need to get the biggest names. People don't want Fournette versus CGJ. They want Tom Brady versus Aaron Rodgers in Fortnite. Am I the only one that could not care less to see Tom Brady versus Aaron Rodgers and Ford. Like,
Definitely not.
Suck at the game, play a game, right? Like,
yeah, that's a no from me as well. I would never watch that.
like you're a Tom Brady fan because you want to watch the man do amazing things with a football, right? But to go and then watch him suck at Fortnite, not sure I get the appeal. And then I want to come back to, isn't this the perfect use case for why you hire YouGov before you spend money on an activation like this, right? To understand what is the real overlap here between people who care about these games and people who also care about football, right? Because there is data there. YouGov has it.
I can take you down to the teams and the players too that pop.
Right.
But yeah.
I assume that's how they picked Chauncey Gardner Stevens or whatever his name is. They're like, he just resonates. YouGov has proven it. We've found the Moneyball. They found the perfect guy.
Alonzo says 25,000 fans from Miskiff stream. Alonzo, are you saying that 25,000? They Miskiff hosted the Tuesday night football thing, the Tuesday night gaming thing, whatever. I'm curious. Matt says I would want to see that happen because it humanizes them. I mean, I don't know. I remember once upon a time, I think it was a YouGov data piece that showed. I think you had it maybe a couple of years ago, Ben, even where it was like, here's the overlap between esports fans and traditional like NFL fans, not necessarily gamers, and so the data points exist, right? And,
we got all of it, definitely. And how many people are spending more than an hour a week on Twitch? I'm sure the audience is over-index considerably, all things considered. But as far as like drawing them to the channel and tuning in and sticking around and coming back again, like that's where I think that execution comes down. But you can track that stuff and try to help.
Alonzo says Miskiff was streaming the event. Nick Merckx did as well for about 13K live viewers. Well, I guess that makes a difference if they have that kind of attention. I wonder if OTK was paid for that attention, though. That might have been the case, Alonzo. Matt says, just look at the success of the Manning cast for Monday Night Football. Lindsay, Jeff, back me up here. Lindsay, you're muted.
Manning cast is actually pretty awesome.
This has when you first like pulled this story up, all I was thinking of was Manning cast. I like totally get the Manning cast vibes from it, and that's why I kind of like that it's smaller players who I have a feeling are super into gaming. Like they probably signed up for this, I would imagine, in some capacity. So I think it's fun when you have people who are there who are excited to be there and just like want to have fun with it. Like I said, do I think this is going to cause a big splash? No, but I do think that the people who are watching like could really enjoy it if there's just like some guys there having fun playing games. Like this is not the worst idea. It's just maybe not the best execution either.
Okay, so does
Tuesday night gaming personalities?
Like, does it become a Monday Night Football style institution where 2 years from now, it's still running on YouTube?
Maybe. But I don't think it will not be an institution.
Not a whole
Can
lot
it still be
of
running? Those are two different questions. Like, is it going to be Monday Night Football? Like, obviously, no. But like, can it be like a profitable, like, good piece of business? Sure. Like, it can continue.
Fair.
And I guess to the point about the Manning cast. I mean, the reason I thought the Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers like thing would be interesting was if they were playing Madden, because then you'd get to hear them talking about football and like how they're picking the plays and stuff like that. Having them play Fortnite is, would be meaningless. Like we saw, during the pandemic, like they tried this whole golf thing where it was like you'd have like all these top athletes playing each other in golf, and like it was cool the first one, and then the novelty sort of wore off. So I think that you might see that here as well.
Interesting. Chris says, wonder who got paid more, the streamers or the football players? That's a good question. Probably the streamers, I would think. Probably quite a bit more would be my guess. Chris says co-sign on Manning cast. Well, all right, guys. That I was just going to say. Let's bring up one last thing. If you guys want to talk about it quickly, Jimmy, maybe get your quick thoughts on this because we were both at this. This last article, guys, from the conference Jimmy and I were at this week. Saudi Arabia makes bold bid to become the world's biggest gaming hub. So from building entire districts to implementing regulations, the kingdom is already making its mark on the international esports scene. So it was a 2-day event. This is His Royal Highness Prince Faisal, who I interviewed, actually, who you're going to listen to, because we're going to do a whole episode of the Business of You're going to get a whole episode of the Business of Esports with my interview of him. And just, some of the things from this article: 34 million people in Saudi, 63% of them, in other words, 21 million people, consider themselves gamers, which is a huge gaming population given the size of the country. And they are investing heavily. Everyone knows they bought ESL and Face It. We've talked about this here before. And they brought kind of a who's who of the industry all together for this 2-day event. They are building some amazing things there. Jimmy, I don't know if you had some thoughts on this. Guys, everyone, your thoughts on this, chime in, questions. We'll spend 5 minutes on this before we wrap up here.
Sure, I'll start. Guys, we were in Riyadh for the week. I had never been to the Kingdom of Saudi before. I got to say, I went in with an open mind and kind of didn't know what to expect. One, the conference itself was very well done, highest quality production that you could have expected. Really beautiful layout and design of the room. It felt like you were in a first class esports event, organized, professionally organized, laid out, etc. The one thing I do want to comment on is there were a ton of women on these panels. There were women moderators. There were women guests. There were also breakout rooms where people were talking about advancing women in gaming in the kingdom, about how to protect women from online harassment and bullying in the kingdom. That was something that I didn't quite expect. And obviously, in the West, we have heard mixed things about this area. And I just wanted to say, I found the country to be completely hospitable, to be so pleasant and charming, to be really above and beyond, honestly, anything that I thought going in. And I was really pleased to see how respected women were at this event. And also just culturally, while I was walking around Riyadh, how respected women were in this culture. So that's my personal view, not paid or influenced to say that, guys. I just wanted to share with you that, as a kid from California and net zero interest in ever being in the Middle East in general, I really had a great time, and big kudos to the Saudis for putting together what I think was, A1 event.
I mean, I've said it before.
Awesome.
I always keep saying it. I think everyone's sleeping on the region. I think there's just so much opportunity here right now. And it's not something I think you can tackle at a distance. I think this is why I moved myself here. But there's just so much opportunity right now happening here, and there's so much conviction around this vision. I took Jimmy to Gamers 8, which is like their 8-week gaming and esports event. It's on a scale that nothing exists like it. Think like of a 2-month PAX times 10, right? It's just the scale of it. Jeff, you had a thought, or Lindsay or Ben?
No, I think it's pretty impressive. Obviously wasn't there, but watching the videos and your panel, very impressed with the production value. Glad to hear what Jimmy mentioned before. I think that's definitely important for gaming at large. And excited to see what continues to go down in the region. Hopefully one of these conferences, they'll bring the juice, because it's hard to have an esports conference without the juice. But I guess they didn't know that.
People just need to stay tuned. It's coming. Yeah. It's all coming. Lindsay, sorry.
Yeah, I loved hearing Jimmy's review of that. That's really, really great news. I know that there's been a lot of positives coming out of that region. I certainly hope that their position on women, everyone's saying the right things. I hope everyone continues doing the right things. I think investment in some of that stuff is important. So hoping to see a lot of good things come out of the region is all, is what I can say.
Chris says, thoughts on timeline for that market to build fan base similar to Brazil? Fan base as in gamers or esports fans? I mean, you got to think Brazil has, I don't even know, 200 million people, something like that. Probably, 8-7 times the population of Saudi Arabia. Like on a on a percentage basis, there's a way bigger density of fan base in Saudi than in Brazil already, Chris. Like the number of gamers and fans, you just like the numbers I heard from Gamers 8, you know, the not official numbers, but rumored numbers of like people who went through over the 8 weeks. Like supposedly they've blown everything out of the water. It blew out every single model and expectation they had. Like the local engagement is in fact where I think Saudi is going to succeed most spectacularly in the short term. There's just so many rabid fans with lots of time, lots of money, and in a climate where you spend a lot of time inside because it's just so hot. And so like I said, on a percent, I don't think they can surpass Brazil just because, you know, Brazil has 200 million people, you know, 7 times the population or 8 times the population or whatever it is. But on a percentage basis, it's already there and probably already bigger on a percentage basis than Brazil. Hardware Barbecue says there's always tea. There is always tea, and Saudi coffee is the best. It's the only coffee I drink. Chris says, working with some gambling companies in Brazil, appreciate the breakdown. You know, there's even rumors that, you know, their gambling may be coming to the kingdom. I mean, I've literally heard these rumors. So there's definitely like an openness and, you know, an openness towards new ideas right now. Now, will that be tomorrow? Probably not. But there's definitely a lot of openness to new ideas. So
that would really surprise me. But positioning Saudi Arabia as like a destination, a global destination for diehard gamers, where you can have these like really incredible, immersive real life experiences, that makes sense. Gambling would seem far-fetched for sure.
A little further. But like again, they have enough locally to sustain a way more vibrant ecosystem there, even than I think in the US, right? Like in terms of hardcore esports fans, I think they can have an ecosystem in Saudi Arabia that is far more sustainable than the US ecosystem today. Just because of they're willing to spend more, they have more time, and again, they spend more time inside. Like there's a whole bunch of reasons why it works locally. To Ben's point, like the global tourism thing, I think they're probably like 2-3 years away from being able to build that vision, right? Where people will say, you know, I'm going for a week to Saudi Arabia to, you know, take in the biggest tournaments in the world and play games in the biggest stage or whatever it is, right? Like, I think that's coming. But there's a more infrastructure there, I think, that still needs to be built around that. It's the interesting thing is when you have this much resources and conviction and ability to move quickly, you catch up very fast, right? Like even if you look today and say, oh, they're 10 years behind, which they're not, they can catch up 10 years in one just because of you don't have bureaucracy like you have here, and you don't have, you know, you have unlimited resources practically. So Kevin says the Saudi location between the EU and Asia is really underrated for esports. I agreed completely. Like this is also the best place to put servers and things, right? Like to allow for fair competitive play. But it also makes it way easier when you have a central hub for people to meet at. It's a good point, Kevin. Cool. I don't have anything else, guys. Anyone else before we wrap up here? Other than thank you to Ben for the amazing insights, and thank you to YouGov for supporting the show. Just some reminders, guys. The podcast episodes coming out this week will be interviews we did at the Next World Forum in Saudi Arabia. Make sure to subscribe, follow us on all the social platforms. So on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, Facebook. I don't even know. We're on every platform. There's content that goes out on all of these platforms every single day. Sign up for the newsletter. Jimmy was a good reminder. Make sure you sign up for the newsletter. There's always good announcements and stuff there, and news every single day in your inbox. And thank you to Lindsay. Thank you to Ben. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you to Jimmy. You guys are amazing as always. Thank you to everyone who showed up, commented. We appreciate all of you guys. We're sorry we missed last week, but we appreciate you all came back this week. Don't forget the most important thing, guys. The future is fun. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for having me, guys.